Hello, this is Kenny Williamson, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. In this episode, we're going to continue on with the second part of Kent Hovind's Dinosaurs in the Bible. So give it a listen and let us know what you think.
Okay, let's take up where we left off about dinosaurs in the Bible. People say, come on now, dinosaurs aren't in the Bible. Well, of course the word's not in there. They didn't make up the word till 1841. The word computer's not in there either, but there really are computers, okay? But yes, dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible. You say, I didn't see them in there. Well, you need to read carefully, okay? If you get the book of Job, the book of Job has 42 chapters. Just about dead center in the Bible, just before Psalms. You find a very fascinating book. In Job chapter 1, it says, Job was a perfect man. He feared God and hated evil. By the way, that's good advice. Okay? And Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And Job had thousands of sheep and camels and oxen and asses. The guy was rich. Really rich. Job was probably written after the flood, but before the law was given in the days of Moses. Before the flood, they lived to be 900. After the flood, they lived to be 400. See, Job lived long enough to have 10 kids, all grown, out of the house. They all died. He had 10 more kids and saw his great-great-grandchildren from his second family. So you got to be living a long time to accomplish those things, okay? So those are the reasons why most people think the book of Job was written after the flood, during the time when they were still living to be, 400. Anyway, one day the messenger came to Job and said, Job, I got some bad news. The oxen and asses were stolen, and your servants got killed. And the sheep got burned up. Oh, and by the way, Job, the camels got stolen too. Stock market crash. Get it? Stock? Never mind. Okay. No. Another messenger came and said, Job, your kids all died. All 10 of your kids are dead. Job's having a bad day. And then Job said, the Lord gave, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Man, what kind of guy is this anyway? Hey, do you do that when bad things happen to you? Huh. Then Satan gave him boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. And his wife turned against him. You know, a man can handle just about any tragedy in life, but that's the toughest one right there. There's a verse you probably never heard preached on ever. Ephesians chapter 5 talks about, husbands love your wives and wives submit yourself to your husband. You've probably heard that part preached on. I bet you never heard this part. Let the wife see that she reverence her husband. Treat him like a god. Offer him burnt sacrifices 3 times a day. Okay? Amen. All right. Chapter 2, verse 10. And Job said, you speak like one of the foolish women. Can't we receive good at the hand of God and not evil? And then Job's 4 friends came to visit him. One of those guys was the shortest man mentioned in the Bible. Bildad the Shuhite. That's pretty short, okay? But these 4 guys came and they talked to Job for 35 chapters. Most of the book of Job is these guys explaining to Job why everything went wrong. They had to be Baptists the way I got it figured. They said, Job, you must have sinned. Eliphaz said, whoever perished being innocent? Job, the reason bad things are happening to you is because you sinned. Now, folks, that is the wisdom of the world, okay? That is not true. See, if something bad happens to somebody, you don't know why it happened. You should love them, pray for them, encourage them, and shut up. Don't go to the hospital when they get their gallstones out and say, hey, brother, these aren't gallstones. These are tithes and offerings. God's getting them out of you one way or another. Don't do that, okay? Let God take care of why everything went wrong. He can handle them just fine, all right? So Job is sitting there scraping the pus out of the boils by the graves of his 10 dead kids thinking, God, would you please answer me? Why did this happen to me? Folks, you don't have to live on this planet very long before you're going to be asking that question. God, why did you do this to me? Now, I don't want to drag skeletons out of anybody's closets, okay? But maybe you've had tragedy in your life. I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. I've got 3 kids here and 3 in heaven already, okay? Yes, tragedy comes to good people trying to do right. It happens, all right? But if something bad happens, what's your response? Job said, I wish the Lord would answer me. See, Job didn't know about Romans 8:28. God said, we know all things work together for good. To them that love God, to them that are the called according to his purpose. Now this verse does not say everything that happens is good. It doesn't say that. It says it'll work together for good. I'll show you. Has anybody ever been hungry? You ever been hungry before? Suppose you come to my house, you knock on the door, say, hey, Hovind, I'm hungry. I'll say, come on in, man. I'm going to give you a cup of flour. That don't sound too good. I got it. How about a spoonful of salt? Now, that'll fill you up. That ain't going to help. I got it. How about a spoonful of baking soda? Now, that will wake you up in the morning. Now, you're probably getting kind of dry by now, so let's pour down a half a cup of Crisco. And chase it down with a cup of buttermilk. You say, Brother Hovind, that would taste terrible. How about if we mix them all together and make biscuits? The individual ingredients for biscuits taste lousy, but they work together for biscuits. And do you know everything that happens to you might not be good, but it'll work together for good if you love God and you're called according to His purpose. See, the Christian life is so simple. Keep your heart right with God. That's it. Now, that'll be tough to do because the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. But Job is sitting there scraping the pus out of the boil saying, God, would you please answer me? And in chapter 38, the Lord answered Job out of a whirlwind. You know, if a tornado starts talking to me, I'm going to pay attention. And the Lord said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Hey, Job, your 4 friends did not know what they were talking about. And by the way, be very careful about getting any Bible doctrine from the book of Job, okay? It's true that the guys said it, but what they said was not true. And cults are always good at picking a verse out here. You better read the whole chapter, okay? Now, I believe the Bible is the Word of God, but the Bible contains some lies. It accurately records the lies of men. It's true that they said it, but what they said was not true. Okay, that's the case of these 4 guys. Anyway, God said, gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? I read that 36 years ago as a brand new Christian. And I thought, what a dumb question. God, why would you ask Job where he was when you laid the foundations of the earth? I said, God, he wasn't there. You know that, and he knows that. So why are you asking such a question? How many of you were here when God built the earth? Was anybody here when God made the earth? Only a couple of Mormons, okay. Yeah. You're in your second existence, I understand, okay. No, you were not here when God built the earth. So kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully, okay. Since you were not here when God made the earth, that means that God is older than you are. How many can figure this out with no help at all? Okay. Did it ever occur to you that God is also smarter than you are? Did it ever occur to you that God is stronger than you are? Did it ever occur to you that God is richer than you are? You say, Brother Hovind, everybody's richer than I are. Okay. Well, God certainly is. Hey, try this one. I've said this one 1,000 times and I've never understood it once. But I say it a lot and I think about it till my brain hurts. Did it ever occur to you that nothing ever occurred to God? He's already thought of everything. He even knows everything you've ever thought about. The Bible says He understands the imaginations of the thoughts. That's a fascinating verse. He not only knows your thoughts, He knows the imaginations of the thoughts. You see, you can not only think about things, you can actually think about what you are thinking about. Think about that. The brain is amazing. The Bible says God knows the thoughts of man. And by the way, it says in Luke, Jesus knowing their thoughts. That's one of many verses that proves Jesus is God Almighty in the flesh. God knows your thoughts and He loves you anyway. Wow, praise God for His mercy, right? Job 38:4. God said, declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof if thou knowest? Question mark. Job doesn't answer. Job's not answering any of God's questions. God said, hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Did you know scientists didn't even know there were springs in the sea until 1977? Just discovered. Science is very slowly catching up with a few parts of the Bible. God said, where is the way where light dwelleth? Now that is fascinating. I taught physics. Did you know light doesn't stay in a place, it's in a way. It's always moving. But then it says, as for darkness, where is the place thereof? You know the speed of light, 186,282.4 miles per second. You know what the speed of dark is? 0. Darkness cannot move. Now think about it. We are the children of light. We are supposed to be on the move, get something done for God, right? People say, well, it's getting dark. The world's so bad. Well, then turn on your light. Duh. The reason it's dark is because of you. Right? You're the light to turn it on. Right? Bible says the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Hey, gates don't attack you. You attack them. Yeah, let's go, man. Do something for God. Anyway, verse 24. By what way is the light parted which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Now, wait. Is God telling Job that the light causes the wind? He sure is. And you can ask any weatherman, that's exactly correct. The sunlight causes the wind patterns. The ground heats up, expands the air. We have wind on earth because of the light. Just like God said 4,000 years ago. God said, canst thou send lightnings? Boy, it's a good thing I can't. How many of you can think of somebody that's lucky to be alive because you cannot send the lightnings? I can think of several. Yes, I can. Okay. God said, canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are. Now, wait. Is God telling Job that electricity can be used to send a message? Like radio, cell phone, microwave, TV? Electricity sends a message two different ways. Through the electricity through the wire and also through the electromagnetic force, the radio waves coming off of it. God told Job that 4,000 years ago. Marconi and them guys had discovered it in the last few hundred years. God asked Job 84 questions. Job never answered one. These are the kind of questions that don't need an answer. The question was designed to change the person's attitude. These are the same kind of questions you dads have to ask your kids. See, I've got 3 kids, one of each. I know what I'm talking about. Kids get to a certain age and they get kind of cocky and they think, they should make the rules around the house. The kid comes in one day and says, hey, Dad, listen. I believe I should be allowed to stay out till 4 in the morning with my friends. After all, I'm 10 now. And Dad says, hold on just a minute, kid. You'd like to know why you can't stay out till 4 in the morning. Well, son, let me ask you a couple of questions. Who pays the electric bill around this house? Who's paying for the house? Who paid for them clothes you're wearing, son? Who paid for that bed you slept on last night? Who pays for the food you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat? Who paid for that hot water and soap you took a shower with about a month ago? Let's just get it straight, son. The Bible is very clear. He who payeth the bills maketh the rules. Second Opinions, chapter 4. You see, son, me, Dad, you, kid. And if you're going to sleep under my roof and eat my food, you're going to do it my way. And if you want to do it your way, well then go get your own roof to sleep under and do it your way. See, that's the golden rule, son. He that hath the gold maketh the rules. Who do you think you are, kid? Where were you when we bought this property and cleared this land and drove off the grizzly bears and marched uphill to school 40 miles in the snow, barefoot, both ways? How many got the same speech when you were growing up? Okay, good. Let's get it straight, son. Me, Dad, you, kid. I think that's what God's doing to Job. God asked Job 84 questions. Job never answered one. But Job got an attitude adjustment. See, Job had the same problem that most of us have. He did not have a good appreciation for who God was. Come to chapter 40. God said, behold now behemoth. Well, what on earth is a behemoth? Well, whatever it was, Job could behold it. Because God never tells you to do something you can't do. See, God would not say, behold now behemoth, if he could not behold now behemoth. That's deep theology, I know, okay, but think it through, all right? Now, some reference Bibles say behemoth is probably the elephant or hippopotamus. Oh, that is ludicrous. I believe behemoth is the long-necked dinosaur. Now, there are 13 different long-necked dinosaurs, okay? There's the brachiosaur, the apatosaur, the cetosaur. He's got the big seat, okay? I think behemoth is the brachiosaurus. It says he eats grass as an ox. Some people say, hey, my Bible says elephant and elephants eat grass. Well, duh, bunny rabbits eat grass too, okay? A lot of animals eat grass, right? Look at the next verse. His strength is in his loins, his force is in the navel of his belly. The biggest part on him is his belly. And they say, well, elephants have a big belly. Yes, I know. Hippopotamus have a big belly. Brachiosaurus had a big belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. Now, hold on a minute. His tail is like a cedar tree. Have you ever seen an elephant's tail? I mean, would that remind you of a cedar tree or a hippo tail? Not like a cedar tree. Now, Brachiosaurus tail, yeah, that's a little more like a cedar tree than the rest of them, okay? You know, before they put those footnotes at the bottom of the Bible, I think they should be required to read the passage at least once and then comment on it, okay? By the way, you preachers, if you're going to preach on a passage, at least read it once before you preach on it, okay? Next verse says, his bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He has big, heavy-duty bones, and they did. This is a real dinosaur toe bone I've got in my museum in Pensacola. One of the knuckle bones from a Brachiosaurus. Now, this will be kind of complicated, so listen carefully. The reason he had such big toe bones is because he had big toes. How many can figure that out with no help? 4, 5, 6. Okay. And the reason he had those big toes is because he had a big foot. There's a kid taking a bath in a brachiosaur footprint. Pictures on the book right here on the steps. And the reason he had that big foot is because he had a big leg to hold up. His front leg is 20 feet tall. The biggest dinosaur found so far is 60 feet to the top of the head, found in Oklahoma. They say it's going to take them 20 years to dig all the bones out of the ground because it is a government project. They say when it was alive, it probably weighed 100 tons. Now, 100 tons is equal to 14 school buses put together. That means if he was to come by and step on you, you would be deeply impressed by him. You would be road pizza. Next verse says, he's the chief of the ways of God. He's the chief. That's the Hebrew word, risheth, which means he's the chief, he's the principal, he's the biggest animal God ever made. Well, that would not be the elephant or hippopotamus. It'd be the Brachiosaurus. And that kind of fits the pattern for the way the devil works, you know. Whenever God makes things, the devil tries to destroy them. God makes beautiful things, and Satan always tries to destroy them. Hey, question. How big is your God? I mean, do you ever think about that? When you stop and pray and you say, Heavenly Father, do you have any idea who you're talking to? I mean, have you ever stopped and just thought about that? Who are you about to talk to? I mean, you sit down for lunch, you know, and you're going to pray. Okay, bless the bunch as they crunch the lunch, amen. We expect God to come like a puppy dog when we call, don't we? Okay, God, I got time for you now. Pay attention. Now, here's my prayers. Give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, and give me this, and give it quick. That's about what it boils down to, isn't it? I mean, have you ever stopped and really thought who you're talking to? How big is your God? Hey, is your God big enough to tell you what to do and you just simply do it without question? For instance, does God tell you what kind of clothes to wear? Now, 1 Timothy says the women should dress modestly. See, my daddy always said, if you're not in business, don't advertise. Does God tell you how to cut your hair? 1 Corinthians says it's a shame for man to have long hair. Oh, when I got saved, I was a lifeguard. Nice suntan, long blonde hair. I read that and said, oh, wow, I better go cut it. It's just a no question. It's a no-brainer. God, you're not happy? Yes, sir. It's absolutely no-brainer. How big is your God? I mean, who is God of your life anyway? If he's really God, then you read the book, you do what he says, end of story. Hey, does God tell you what kind of speech to have? Ephesians 4 says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. Is God happy with everything coming out of your mouth? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. That's a good verse to quote to somebody when you hear him cuss, by the way. Does God control what you watch on TV? Psalm 101 says, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. Hey, do you put wicked things in front of your eyes? Suppose you made a rule around, just suppose you made a rule around your house. If you hear a cuss word on TV, you're going to shut it off for 2 hours. If you see somebody immodestly dressed, you're going to shut it off for 2 hours. If you see somebody drinking alcohol, you're going to shut it off for 2 hours. What if you just made those 3 simple rules at your house? How much TV would you watch? None. So you might as well sell it and give that $30 a month for the cable bill to a missionary, and we could win the whole world to Christ, couldn't we? Yeah. Does God tell you what kind of music to listen to? Ephesians 5, speak to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing melody, making in your heart to the Lord. Is God happy with your music? See, God loves music. God invented music. But Satan has invented some ungodly music you shouldn't listen to. Somebody asked me one time, they said, Hovind, do you know what you get if you play country music backwards? I said, no. He said, you get your wife back, your hound dog back, your pickup back, and you get out of jail. God created them male and female. Did you know God invented marriage and the family and sex? I mean, he invented the whole thing. And he wants it to be wonderful. But so he put some rules down. Boys, Don't touch the girls till you're married to them. He put the rules down because he wants the best. He said the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. God doesn't want you hunting for a precious life. He wants you to have a precious life. Hey, do you know why these Hollywood folks have to get married again every 6 months? Or Britney Spears, 55 hours. Jennifer Lopez, 7 months. Brandy Norwood, less than 2 years, less than 6 months. Zsa Zsa Gabor, married 1 day. Do you know why they got to get married again every 6 months? They're hunting for the precious life. They don't have it. Now listen carefully. Don't pay any attention to Hollywood. They don't have a clue. Not the clue in the world how to have a precious life. If you want to have a precious life, you keep yourself pure till you walk down that aisle and the preacher says, wilt thou? And then you wilt, or whatever they do. And then you stay faithful to that one the rest of your life. That is the precious life. Don't believe Hollywood for a second. They don't have a clue, all right? God created the living creatures, every living creature. God made the dinosaurs. He made them. And Satan said, you know, there has to be some way I can use dinosaurs against God. But he couldn't fool Adam, not with dinosaurs. Adam named them. Can you imagine the devil walking up to Adam and saying, hey, Adam, did you know dinosaurs lived millions of years ago? Adam would say, are you stupid? There's one in the backyard right there eating on a cherry tree. I mean, what do you mean millions of years ago? The devil couldn't fool Noah. I mean, he fed him every day. But for the next 4,000 years, dinosaurs became more rare. They were dying off or being killed off or whatever, you know, some of the reasons they died. And by 1809, they were just nearly extinct. And somebody found the bones and put one together. 1809, first dinosaur that we know of, put together for a museum. Satan was there that day and said, wow, here's my chance. These critters have always lived with man. I know that, and God knows that. But these people don't know that. So the devil said, I think I'm going to tell everybody they lived millions of years ago. And if they believe it, it'll make them doubt the Bible. And boy, has it worked good. You know, for the last 200 years, kids have gone to kindergarten and they get a book like this. I can read about dinosaurs. Would anybody like to take a wild guess at what the first sentence in the book says? Millions of years ago. Hey, how many kids are being taught that in your town? At your expense. You are paying for the destruction of the next generation. Now, maybe that doesn't bother you, but it bothers me. And if you think I leave my gorgeous wife and travel all over the world, been gone, let's see, over 200 days a year for years now, flew 215 times last year, spoke over 900 times. If you think I leave my gorgeous wife and my 4 grandkids because I like being gone, you are mistaken. Okay? They'd much rather be home. But there's a war going on. Somebody's got to warn the troops. Hello, to arms, the British are coming, you know, pick up your gun, guys, let's go. There are kids by the billions being brainwashed on this planet. And Satan is using dinosaurs to do it. Nearly all the books say millions of years ago. And then we got some Christians that totally ignore the subject because they don't have an answer. Well, study to show yourself approved unto God. Get the answer and go share it with somebody, okay? Millions of years ago, the book says. I go to museums all the time, just makes my blood boil. You see hundreds and hundreds of kids coming past these incredible displays. I mean, beautiful big dinosaur skeletons. And guess what the sign says at the bottom? Millions of years ago. See, Christians don't seem to understand this. The museums and science centers of the world, that is their church. They are preaching their gospel just like you are trying to preach your gospel. And they're using your tax dollars to preach their gospel. That's how it happens. Millions of years ago. The Bible says, Behemoth lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. Now the word fens is an old English word that means the swamp. You know, the biggest swamp in the world is in the middle of Africa. It's called the Likwala Swamp. That swamp is huge. Most Americans don't appreciate the size of Africa. Africa is gigantic, okay? That swamp is bigger, is the same size as the state of Florida, 55,000 square miles. That swamp is huge. Did you know that swamp today is 80% unexplored? In 1885, Congo in Africa was taken over by Belgium, and it was called the Belgian Congo for many, many years. In 1960, the communists liberated them. You know how the communists liberate countries. They kill everybody. Okay, you're free now. Yeah, anyway. There were reports in that swamp from the 1700s when the missionaries went in there and said, man, there are dinosaurs still living in that swamp. Dinosaurs still alive? 1910, New York Herald ran an article about dinosaurs still living in Africa's swamps. Here's a Saturday Evening Post, 1948. There could be dinosaurs still alive in Africa. A big game hunter named Mr. Gobbler returned from a trip to Angola. He announced to the Cape Town newspaper, the Cape Argus, that there was an animal of large dimensions, the description of which could only fit a dinosaur. The natives call it Chippewa. In Central African Republic, they call it Nguri. Roy Mackal went there in 1980 on an expedition. He spent $250,000, went back again the next year, went to that swamp. He said it's the most miserable swamp on planet Earth. The mosquitoes landed on them at the rate of about 1,000 an hour constantly. I mean, like swarms of dust around you. Bloodthirsty mosquitoes. 95 degrees, 95% humidity all the time. As they traveled around the swamp, the natives talked about this animal called Mahamba. He said, what's that? And they showed him a crocodile. Oh yeah, that's the Mahamba right there, Mahamba. He said, how big does it get? They pasted off on the sandbar, 50 feet long. Now, if you're a pygmy, 4'4", a 50-foot crocodile looks really big to you, okay? And everybody says, no, crocodiles, they never get past about 17 feet. Oh, I don't think that's correct. Earlier in the summer of 2005, they killed a 24-foot crocodile in that swamp. Of course, the natives will say, oh, you should see the big ones. The natives also talk about an animal they call Mokele Mbembe. Mokele Mbembe? What on earth is that? Well, if you show them the picture of an apatosaurus, they'll say, yep, that's it, Mokele Mbembe. The natives claim these animals live underwater. They're very rare. Of course, they're in the swamp in Africa, and nobody goes out at night anyway, and there's no lights over there at night. But the animals are seen mostly early morning or late in the evening when they come out, and their favorite plant is the Malombo plant. There's Dr. Mackal holding a Malombo plant. Dr. Mackal was a University of Chicago microbiology professor, and he went over there and studied this carefully and came back and wrote a book called A Living Dinosaur. Now, he believes in evolution, but his book is great about the evidence for dinosaurs still living in African swamp. They found footprints of the creatures. A missionary friend of mine was there for 43 years as a missionary, Eugene Thomas. He's in Ohio now. Here's his phone number. Call him up. He was there for 43 years. He said, I had 2 pygmies in my church. It killed one and ate it. Dinosaurs. There have been reports of these creatures in that swamp for a long time. One Belgian Congo biologist went up there, upriver 500 miles from his house and said he saw one, but his camera malfunctioned because the high humidity apparently ruined all the mechanisms inside. I don't know. But there have been many reports of dinosaurs in that swamp, and you can study this for yourself. One group went there, and they said the creature was dark brown in color. The skin appeared slick and smooth, had a long neck and a small head. They heard it, they saw it. It was making a roaring noise, and the government officials even saw it. There's an article here in the Boston Herald newspaper about a group going over to look for the dinosaurs still alive in the Congo swamp. All you got to do is type in cryptozoology. Crypto means hidden, zoology means study of animals. Cryptozoology, you'll find all kinds of stuff about dinosaurs still living. The natives claim these animals live in caves along the side of the river. William Gibbons has been there 4 times now to the Congo swamp. He and I wrote this book together for kids, Claws, Jaws, and Dinosaurs. William Gibbons wrote me a letter. He said, according to our guide, Pierre Sima, we were the first white men to actually penetrate the forest and swamps bordering the Buamba River. Our informants, almost all of them Baka pygmies, with the exception of an elderly Cameroonian Muslim, are perfectly familiar with all the known and unknown animals of the swamps. While they do not regard Lakila Mbembe, it's a different language, okay, as being an unusual animal, they do fear the creature because of its ferocity in attacking hippos, elephants, and crocodiles. The animal appears to be completely intolerant of any other large creature that shares the river and controls large stretches of the river, particularly where the food supply is present. The 2 suspected dinosaurians, Mokele Mbembe and Ngubu, are observed and encountered on a regular basis. I question an older Baka couple that work on Pierre's plantation. Like most pygmies, they are very familiar with the flora and fauna of the region. I presented them with our book of known African animals and dinosaur illustrations. About 98% of the dinosaur illustrations were rejected, except for 2, which they picked out without hesitation, that they had observed, a sauropod dinosaur and a triceratops. Now, why would people in the middle of the swamp in Africa say, oh yeah, we've seen that one? Missionary Cal Bombay was there for years in Kenya. He said he and his wife saw one of these creatures, but the plates on the back were bigger, more like a stegosaurus. Down in South America, they've got the Amazon jungle, which is huge. In 1907, the British Army sent Colonel Fawcett to mark the boundary between Brazil and Peru. He was an officer in the Royal Engineers and was known as a meticulous recorder of facts. In the Beni's swamps, he said he saw what he believed to be a diplodocus. The natives and the tribes around there say, oh yeah, that animal still lives out here in the swamp. Colonel Fawcett's son made sketches of the footprints. In 1883, Scientific American ran this article before they got committed to evolution. An article like this would never make it in Scientific American today, because now they're dedicated to preserving the theory. But they said the Brazilian minister at La Paz, Bolivia, had remitted to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Rio photographs of drawings of an extraordinary saurian killed on the Beni after receiving 36 balls. By order of the president, the dried body, which had been preserved and was sent to La Paz. It was 12 meters long, 39 feet, from snout to point. It had scale armor. The neck is long, the belly large and almost dragging the ground. Professor Gilvetti examined the beast, said it's a member of a lost species. The Indians in that region make small earthen vessels in the same shape, probably copied from nature. Vaughn Goff called me 3 days ago, as I was driving up here to Indiana. He said, yeah, the natives in his area talk about a lizard that's 30 feet long, 5 feet tall, makes a thundering noise to startle its prey. The native Waiwai Indians call it Uru Fairy, and they are terrified of this creature. Here's his email, vaughn@goffministries.org. Email him. They talk about dinosaurs still in the swamp down there. Here's a giant snake that was killed several years ago, 35-foot snake. It had eaten a man who fell asleep on the job. Stay awake on the job, fellas, okay? This snake was reported in Indonesia being 49 feet long. I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, people might have exaggerated, but that's the reports of a giant snake down there. Colonel Fawcett said he killed a 62-foot anaconda snake. And the natives were terrified. They said, Colonel, if there's one, there's going to be another one. Officials of Brazil-Colombia boundary in 1933 killed a 98-foot snake, 2 feet in diameter, weighed 2 tons. The cook from a hotel in Amazon said they saw a 100-foot snake that the military hunted down after it killed and eaten 2 soldiers. The head was 5 feet long. Reuters News Service reported a 130-foot snake back in 97. This thing floated down the Amazon River. Nobody poked it to see if it was alive, but they reported it's over nearly 150 feet long. Amazon River is huge. Halfway up where a former student of mine was a missionary for years, he said the Amazon River way back here is 9 miles wide. That's a big river. There's a lake in Scotland called Loch Ness. Has anybody ever heard of Loch Ness? Loch Ness is a huge lake, 24 miles long, 1 mile to 1.5 miles wide, up to 900 feet deep. Loch Ness is big enough that everybody on planet Earth could go drowned in it at the same time. It would hold the entire population of the world. 6 billion people would fit in that lake. It's huge. In 1933, a roadbed was cut into the side of the mountain, because before 1933, if you wanted to see the lake, you got to climb over the mountains or go upriver 7 miles in your boat. So not many people went there. Very sparsely populated. In 1933, the first year the road was put in, there were 52 separate sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. This author said there have been 9,000 reported sightings today. Now that was back in the 1960s when this book was written. Today it's over 11,000 reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. 11,000. Of course, some are fakes and frauds, okay? I wouldn't trust the, Weekly World News, where they got all this weird stuff in there. But Sir Peter Scott's a member of Parliament. He said he saw it. He believes it's a plesiosaur. Almost everybody that sees it says it's this animal right here, a plesiosaurus. Long neck, 4 big flippers. One guy wrote a book and he said, some people think Nessie is a plesiosaur. There's one thing wrong with this theory. Plesiosaurs are believed to have become extinct 70 million years ago. Oh, is that what's wrong with the theory? I think this evolution theory has got to be the biggest hindrance to scientific research there's ever been. Okay? You look at the facts, forget your theories, look at the facts and come up with your conclusions. Okay? Arthur Grant nearly ran into Nessie on his motorcycle one night. He said, I had a splendid view of the object. In fact, I almost struck it with my motorcycle. It had a long neck, large oval-shaped eyes on top of a small head. The tail would be 5 to 6 feet long. He describes it, 15 to 20 feet long altogether. He said, knowing something of natural history, he was a veterinarian student, okay? He said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Here's the sketch he drew of what he nearly ran over on his motorcycle. A 20-foot long plesiosaur. Alexander Campbell was the game warden for Loch Ness for 47 years. He said he saw it 18 times. There's the sketch he drew of it. Many people have tried to catch the Loch Ness Monster. They've used everything you can imagine for bait, and some things you could not imagine. So far, nobody's caught it. I mean, the lake is huge. But there have been many, many sketches drawn. One family said they saw it with a sheep in its mouth. One guy got a picture of the hump sticking out of the water. The neck is over on the far right. Then Reader's Digest, of course, they crop everything down. They cut the neck off when they published their picture, the crop picture. But McLeod said he watched it for 9 minutes through binoculars and made 4 sketches of it, of what he saw. McLeod said, I think the monster looks like this. All you got to do is, watch TV programs once in a while where they talk about the Loch Ness Monster. There are thousands of people who will go on record and say, I have seen it. World Book Encyclopedia paid to have a submarine taken over there from South Carolina, the mini-sub. The guy went down in the water and said, that water is so black, I can't even see the front of my own boat. Loch Ness is like a giant mud puddle. You go down in there just a few feet, visibility is 0. You can't see a thing. Japanese put 24 boats, went all the way down the lake and reported, they scanned the bottom with sonar, and said, man, this is a deep lake, and it's wrinkled up like a raisin. And there are caves going off to the side. Probably with air chambers, the creature can come up under, and go under inside the mountain and breathe and live in there. One guy got a picture of diamond-shaped flipper underwater. Again, they thought it was a plesiosaur. Reader's Digest published this picture, and back in '78, pictures right there on the floor, about Nessie with its mouth open. We can go all day about Loch Ness Monster, but they said this photograph was a fake, and it probably was, but I don't know. It's interesting, they waited till the last guy involved died to announce it's a fake. Now how do you check out the truth? But anyway, there are other lakes besides Loch Ness. There's Loch Lochy, Loch Morar. There are many other lakes reporting creatures. There's one called the Morgwar, the Cornish sea serpent by England. The English Channel has many reported sightings of a creature like this. In 1749, in England, a creature was caught resembling in some degree an alligator, but having 2 large fins. The body was covered with impenetrable scales. It had 5 rows of teeth. 1934, this thing washed up on the beach in Normandy, France. There's a guy standing there looking at it for scale. A couple of scientists reported this creature swam past their boat in Brazil in 1905. They reported the whole thing in a scientific journal. The creature had a long neck. The dorsal fin, was 6 feet long, 2 feet high, a small head on a neck about 7 or 8 feet long. 2 experienced British naturalists reported the thing. And again, we can go all day on reported sightings. This thing, in 1977, a Japanese fishing boat pulled this up in their net. It was 32 feet long, 4,000 pounds. They said, what on earth is that? Captain said, I don't know, but it stinks. When they set it down on the deck, it broke in half and pus oozed out everywhere. So they made a bunch of sketches, took a bunch of pictures, and shoved it overboard. A special stamp was made for Japanese mail in 1977. Now, some people argue that it might have been a basking shark, and I agree, it might have been a basking shark. But the fishermen on board said, we know what basking sharks are, we don't think it is, okay? Basking sharks, they tend to rot away, leaving the head part behind. There's a basking shark right there. Okay? It could have been a basking, it doesn't matter to me. They said the protein is 96% similar. Yes, I know, but nobody's ever seen plesiosaur protein, okay, to know what it's supposed to look like. Humans and apes are similar, but have many differences also. Anyway, there's a lot of arguments about that. It doesn't matter to me, but some people get all bent out of shape because they even mention, the Japanese catch of 1977. Russians report a creature in a lake up there. They call it Mystery of the Lake here. It looked like a dinosaur washed up on the beach in Russia in 1994. It was 39 feet long. This thing apparently is a doctored photo of a shark. Somebody with Photoshop, made it look like a plesiosaur, but actually it's a doctored photo. But so be careful. There's plenty of frauds out there, no question. But the existence of a fraud or counterfeit does not disprove the existence of the original. In 2004, a bunch of people over in Papua New Guinea reported a creature like a dinosaur, 10 feet tall, with a head like an alligator, or tail like an alligator, a head like a dog, right there on the island in the city of Kokopo. One lady said she saw it, she ran for her life, seeing a 3-meter tall creature with a head like a dog and a tail like a crocodile. You can read all about it on the internet about this creature seen just in 2004. Japan reports some of these creatures. The North Island, Hokkaido reports them, and the South Island down here of Japan. They call it Ishi in Lake Ikeda. In China, there's reported one called USO, Unidentified Swimming Object. Norway has several reported sightings, as do Swedish lakes, a couple of Swedish lakes up there. They call it, anybody speak Swedish, know how to say that? Stores, Jordan. Close enough, yeah, okay. You don't speak Swedish, do you? You're lying, okay. In Norway, they've got a creature. They say it's very similar to the Loch Ness Monster. Hundreds of folks claim they've seen it. It's in the news occasionally, kind of like Loch Ness, okay? Canada has reported sightings of these creatures, Canadian lake monsters. Nessie's Canadian cousin. There's a lake in the town of Kelowna called the Lake Okanagan. It's a huge lake. It's 80 miles long. I've been up there twice to speak in the town of Kelowna. The natives call this creature the Ogopogo. We sell a book on our table back there if you want to get that. The Ogopogo. Very similar to Loch Ness Monster. Thousands of folks claim they've seen that one. This article says they were the latest among thousands to see something strange in this narrow 80-mile-long lake. One guy swam the length of the lake and said the thing came up under him, scared him half to death. I got news articles like crazy about this. She said, I saw Ogopogo twice, this woman says. I interviewed John Caruso. He and his family were sleeping in their boat on the lake. They're camping out on the lake in their big boat. And something bumped the bottom of their boat and woke them all up in the middle of the early in the morning. They went out and saw 2 Ogopogos swimming across the lake. He went back, grabbed his camera. By the time he got it, it was pretty far away. But he gave me a copy of the video footage of what he saw at about quite too far away to make out the details. But he said, "Look, Brother Hovind, I saw the Ogopogo." Many, many folks will go on record and saying, "I have seen it." There's one in Cadborough Bay, British Columbia. There's a book about that if you want to read more. A baby caddy was found inside the stomach of a sperm whale. They say it has a short pointed front flippers and a long-necked beast with a horse-like head. One guy caught a baby one with his dip net, drew a sketch of it before he released it. He didn't know what it was, so he let it go. I interviewed this guy for an hour. These 4 guys were fishing in Canada when a creature chased their boat off Cape Sable Island, Nova Scotia, when I was preaching up there. It happened in 1992 when I met him. He said he was 67 when this happened. He'd been fishing out there since he was 5. He said this 40 to 50 foot long creature chased their boat for 1 to 2 miles. He said the neck was 2 feet thick and 8 to 9 feet long. It had 9-inch diameter eyes. He said they were 6 miles south of Cape Sable Island. He said, I don't want to see it again. That's what he told me. This thing washed up on the beach in Newfoundland. Sometimes big blobs wash up. Sometimes it is whale skin, actually. The whale dies, gets eaten, and the layer of blubber, washes up. Sometimes it's a basking shark. Parker Cove, this thing washed up in Parker Cove, Canada. I talked to many folks who said they saw it. A lot of people went and analyzed it. I don't think it's ever positively determined what it is. It might have been a basking shark, but nobody knows positively. But it's gone. People cut pieces off it. The vertebrae do tend to look like shark vertebrae instead of any other kind. It's just interesting that stuff like this washes up on the beach. But we sell a book called Monster about North American lake monsters. Lake monsters and sea serpents. A good book by Lauren Coleman, who is a cryptozoologist, but also an evolutionist, okay? I interviewed Jacques Boisvet for 3 hours. He collects sightings of the Lake Memphremagog creature between Vermont and Quebec, Canada. Hundreds of folks claim they've seen something in this lake up there in Lake Memphremagog. Creature's been seen in the Potomac River. There's a book about the great New England sea serpent. There's an island off Connecticut and Rhode Island called Block Island, where many folks claim they've seen creatures swimming around out there. They call it the Loch Ness Monster. One washed up in 1996, another was something else washed up in 2004, never was identified that I know of. And I interview people all the time. Lake Erie's apparently got one. Erie's Bessie matches Nessie. They say it's 35 feet long, has a snake-like head. It's in the newspaper once in a while about Lake Erie's monster. Okay, you can read all that for yourself. But a dead baby creature was found on the beach of Lake Erie. A guy took it home, stuffed it, and mounted it. He's a taxidermist. He said, you tell me what it is. I don't know. Dr. Ball bought it. It's in his museum in Texas. It's never been identified. They're not sure what. It may be a fake. Nobody knows, but very interesting little critter. I interviewed the sheriff who saw that was the first guys to see the Scituate Harbor monster, 50 feet long when it washed up on the beach. Everybody started cutting pieces off. By the time they got the photo taken, it was pretty butchered up. Some people argued it's a basking shark. Others said it's a real sea serpent. The health department said, we don't care. It stinks. We're getting it out of here. And so they blew it up with dynamite. California, 1925, this critter washed up on the beach. That's the head. Here's the neck going down to the right. Just the neck was 20 feet long. Everybody that examined it said it was a plesiosaurus, 20-foot neck. One atheist wrote me a letter and said, Hovind, you're so stupid. He said, don't you know that was a whale? I said, now just exactly where is the neck on a whale? Ought to be between the head and the flippers. He said, it's a rare form of Bard's beaked whale. Oh, it's pretty rare, all right, with a 20-foot neck. Duh. The people who saw it said it's a plesiosaurus. Why is that so hard to believe? You know why people resist explanations like that? It goes against their theory. They like the evolution theory because it gives them freedom from God. That's why they like that theory. And we could spend all day on cryptozoology stuff. I have studied this for years and love. I've interviewed now 100 people that claim they've seen a living dinosaur. In New York, 1969, the harbor police chased something much bigger than a whale upriver. Never did catch it. Could have been a zeuglodon or a basilosaurus, I don't know. But the White River monster in Newport, Arkansas has been reported many times. Up until 1973, it apparently disappeared. Arkansas Senate passed a resolution that said it's unlawful to molest, kill, or trample the White River monster. Off the coast of Jupiter, Florida, something's been seen similar to a dinosaur swimming in the ocean out there. You can read the articles for yourself. A lot of this stuff's on my website, Dr. Dino. You can read all about this. There's a lake between New York and Vermont called Lake Champlain, where many people claim they've seen the Lake Champlain monster. I interviewed Sandy that took this picture. I said, Sandy, do you think you saw a dinosaur? She said, no, I know I saw a dinosaur. She and her husband and 2 kids watched it for 10 minutes. 58 people on the Ethan Allen, which capsized earlier a couple months ago, some people think they all ran to one side to see something and flipped the boat over. I don't know, maybe it's just too many Twinkies, but the captain on board back in 1898 said, if you think what I saw was a fish, it weighed 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. The Bible talks about the dragons of the waters. He shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. In Pensacola, where I live, 4 or 5 teenagers went scuba diving back in 1962. One survived the trip. Here's what he said. They were going out to the sunken ship in the Pensacola harbor called the Massachusetts, and here's what he said. He said, we were in an Air Force rescue raft bound for a sunken ship a few miles off the coast. Midway out, we were caught in a storm and dragged out to sea. When the storm cleared, we were in a dense fog. We began to hear strange noises like the splashing of a porpoise and a sickening odor like dead fish. The noise got closer to the raft, and I heard a loud hissing sound. Out in the fog, we saw what looked like a long pole about 10 feet high sticking up out of the water. On top was a bulb-like structure. It bent in the middle and went under. It appeared several more times, getting closer to the raft. The silence was broken once again by something out of the fog. I can only describe it as a high-pitched whine. We panicked. All 5 of us put on our fins and went into the water. Keep together and try for the ship, I yelled. After we got in the water, we got split up in the fog, and from behind I could hear the screams of my comrades, one by one. I got a closer look at the thing just before my last friend went under. The neck was about 12 feet long, brownish green and smooth looking. The head was like a sea turtle, except more elongated. The eyes were green with oval pupils. I don't know how long it was before I heard a scream. It lasted maybe half a minute. Then I heard Warren call, hey, help me, it's got Brad, I've got to get out of here. His voice was cut off abruptly by a short cry. Brad, Warren, hey, where is everybody? I yelled back at the top of my lungs. Larry now swam with Eric and me. Warren and Brad were nowhere in sight. Right next to Eric, that telephone pole-like figure broke water. I could see the long neck and 2 small eyes. The mouth opened and it bent over. It dove on top of Eric, dragging him under. I screamed and began to swim past the ship. My insides were shaking uncontrollably. He drew a sketch of the thing that killed his friends. He said, I finally made it to the top of the ship and stayed there most of the night. Next morning, I swam to shore, was found by the rescue unit. That's the sketch Brian McCleary drew of what he saw that killed his 4 friends. I was speaking in Fort Walton Beach, Florida one time, and Valerie Bill came to me and said, Mr. Hovind, my stepson, Larry Bill, was one of the kids who was eaten. That story you are telling is correct. But the Pensacola News Journal said, after they interviewed him, they said, this is a beach town. You know, people come here to go swimming. We're not going to report that your friends got eaten by a dinosaur. We're going to report that they drowned. So that's what the newspaper said, 4 teenagers drowned. Panama City, there's been something seen there similar. Youth director at a Lutheran church told me his whole youth group was in the van and they saw a creature like that in Panama City Harbor. There have been many reports of dinosaurs still living. There could be some pterodactyls still alive. The natives call the animal the Congomato. If you're in Congo, in Kenya they call it Batamzinga. Steve Romandi was on the Kenya Olympic running team. He called me and said, he was going to school in Louisiana. He said, Mr. Hovind, I saw those creatures. He said, we've got them in my village in Kenya. He said, their favorite food is decaying human flesh. They dig up graves and eat the bodies. They kept talking about the Congomato. Well, we could cover dinosaurs still living for hours, but there have been lots of reports of pterodactyls still around. I get calls about this from people all the time, about pterodactyls being seen in Papua New Guinea or in Indonesia or in Venezuela. Wish we had time to cover all that, about all these pterodactyl sightings. Dave Wetzel went there and said, man, the natives kept talking about this flying ropin that glows in the dark over in Papua New Guinea. It lives on the island right there. So what's the point? You say, Brother Hovind, who cares? Yeah, I think there might be some dinosaurs still alive. And I think we have really been lied to about the dinosaurs. Now, I don't think there's many, and it's probably safe to go to the dorm, okay? Don't get excited and think, wow, we're going to get eaten by a dinosaur. No, it's not that way. The hallway will be clear tonight, I assure you, okay? But the Indians had a legend called the Thunderbird. They said a giant bird got hit by lightning. When they found it 3 days later, the buzzards had picked the bones clean, but they said the wingspan was 20 feet and had a bony bump on the back of its head. The Indian prayer sticks, to this day, have the head of a pterodactyl on them. Now, Henry Ford put an eagle on the taillight of his Thunderbird. It should have been a pterodactyl. You blew it, Henry. French explorers Jacques Marquette and Joliet stopped near what now is the town of St. Louis and reported they saw a big ugly bird painted on the cliff on the other side in Alton, Illinois. The Indians said, oh, that's a Piasaw bird. A great chief killed him years ago. They painted the picture up there for years. They finally put a big metal plaque. There's me down below it for scale. They took it down for fear the plaque would fall. I guess they just recently put it back up. I don't know. But if you go to Alton, Illinois, you'll see Piasaw, Piasaw Dairy Queen. It's pretty famous over there, whatever the Piasaw bird was. Okay. And we talk a lot about that. People say, well, Brother Hovind, why do you speak about dinosaurs? Well, for one thing, Satan's using them to teach his gospel. It's time Christians, put up a defense. Christians are confused where they fit in. They are a great evangelistic tool. Kids will gather around you like crazy when you get dinosaurs. He's the chief of the ways of God. Well, then God ought to get the glory. Now, the Bible also talks about Leviathan, but that's a whole other story. We'll cover Leviathan some other time. So basically, God made everything in 6 days. Dinosaurs lived with man. People have killed most of them. There could be a few still alive. And Christians need to quit worrying about dinosaurs and start using them for God's glory. We'll cover more on that in the next session.
Okay, and that about sums that one up. Again, that was Dr. Kent Hovind, and that was his lecture on dinosaurs in the Bible. You can find more about Dr. Kent Hovind on his website, drdino.com. So if you really like this or whatever, just give it a like, share it if you would. You can check us out on our website at kennywilliamson.com, or you can give us an email at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. So just let us know what you think. Thanks for listening. I hope this helped you, and God bless you.